Try that again. Hey, how's it going, everybody? I have no idea why my camera suddenly decided this was the perfect time to stop working. So bear with me for a moment, see if I can get that camera back on. It's always something with this stream, isn't it? All right, let me unplug the camera and plug it back in. Let's see if that works. RC Mania, good to see you in chat. Hello. Let's see if this is going to work. Why does that not want to show up? All right, that's weird. Why doesn't my camera want to show up at all? It shows up if I do it full screen. Let's pull that back down here. All right, that made it gigantic. All right, bear with me. Gotta fix this thing again. This was working earlier today. How's it going? Sorry for the delay here. We'll get this up and running here shortly. There we go. And for some reason, I am incredibly pale. All right, let's close that. Let's reopen that. Go back to here. There we go. More normal. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the stream. I'm Eden Douglas. I am the author of this website, which is suddenly off camera. Always something. All right, let me zoom out on the camera a little bit. Close enough. All right, how's it going? Happy New Year, everybody. Funky sound, but something did show. Yeah, here I am. Thou Wolford Step, good to see you in chat as well. Hello, hello. Yeah, so a little bit of a different sort of theme that I'm gonna be doing on the stream on Thursdays is getting into more maker type of stuff. You can kind of see a little bit of my desk here. I'll kind of introduce you to what's going on the desk as we work, but Thursday nights are going to be more of like maker time. I'm going to be hacking on hardware, software, all kinds of fun stuff. I've got a huge to-do list of things that I want to get into in 2023. And so you can do !to-do, T-O-D-O, in chat if you want to see a link to the public to-do list. Oh, that's why it's off screen, because it's actually, there we go. It's always something on this thing, isn't it? Let's shrink that up. There we go, close enough. Yeah, you can do !to-do, and that'll give you a link to a Trello board that I made. And that Trello board is basically, it's going to be publicly accessible, that everybody can check out. And it's all the different kind of stuff that I want to get into in 2023. Rebuilding the website for Tech Interview Guide, rearranging the Nanoleaf lights, getting into Lego. I just like moments ago, got the light kit for the BD1 back here. And so we're going to be hacking on one of these light kits on the Trench Run tonight. And we're going to be getting that working on a Raspberry Pi, and we're going to implement like a little pewpew kind of command or something like that in chat, where you can do like !pewpew and watch the lights blink on Trench Run. The ultimate goal is to like set it up on the desk here behind me so that when you do pew, you'll actually see the lights blink in the background. So yeah, that's what we're going to work on tonight. But if you want to check out the to-do list, you're more than welcome to see what's on there now. I do want to kind of point out some new channel point redemptions that you can do. There's a channel point redemption that you can do because I know a lot of you are accruing channel points in the channel and not using them, because I can see those kinds of analytics. And so I've added a few new things on there. There's a hello there that you can do. There's an ahem. If I miss a question in chat, you can do that one. And that should hopefully... Yeah, it'll play a little soundbite, and that'll get my attention of like, hey, I need to pay attention to something in chat. Invalid dynamic link. Really? Oh, it worked earlier. As Zombie said, you have 2 mic sources. My microphone has two sources. I have two microphones. Are you hearing me twice? Is that like, is there an echo or something? Yeah, invalid dynamic link. All right, this did work earlier today. Oh, there's a semicolon on there. If you take the semicolon off of there, it'll work. Let me go fix that real quick and restart the chatbot. Let's see, where's my to-do list? Yeah, that's why. I was trying to use punctuation in my chatbot command. And yeah. All right, so let me reboot the chatbot. Okay. So yeah, I'll have to. So I bought another Stream Deck that I can hit a button, pull up, change the scene, change the mic source, all that kind of stuff. So I was trying like two microphones on at the same time, but it sounds like that was causing problems. So we'll get all that fixed. Hey, Whip, good to see you in chat as well. Yeah, just when I'm facing the kind of the maker desk, I'm not going to be able to have this microphone in front of my face, but still want you all to hear me. And so I put another microphone on this desk, but apparently turning them both on at the same time is a bad idea. So thanks for that. Learning curve. There's always learning curve with stuff going on. So yeah, so if you do exclamation point to do now, that link should work. Or if you just take the original link and take off the semicolon on the end, then that should work fine. And it's basically a Trello board, and you're going to see all kinds of stuff on there. You're going to see like Lego kits that I've got on order. There's actually a gigantic box over here that we'll open tonight, and we'll see some of the Lego kits that I've got. We've got light kits like the BD1 light kit. And I've got other light kits on the way for some of the stuff that's in that box. We've got giveaway stuff planned. We've got, what else? Yeah, anyway, there's other channel point redemptions that you can take a look through. Hey, GBAV, good to see you as well. Madeline of Rivia, good to see you as well. Go give Madeline and GBAV a follow, as well as Zombie Hedgehog. Zombie Hedgehog is a tremendous resource for getting into like the nitty gritty of 3D printing. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I may dabble a little bit in 3D printing. I do want to show some of my techniques for sort of post-processing 3D prints and getting into painting and stuff like that. So Tuesdays and Thursdays are going to be kind of a grab bag. There's a lot of stuff on that to-do list, and basically Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm just going to grab whatever you all prioritize as far as what I'm going to work on next. Otherwise, I'm going to pick something. But there are channel point redemptions that you can redeem where you can say, hey, I want to reprioritize something on the list, and we'll have a conversation on what do you want to bump up and make more important than something else. Yeah, so that'll let all of you decide on what I'm going to be doing on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Sunday is still going to be tech interview guide. So Sunday is still going to be like interview prep, career prep, resume reviews, all that kind of stuff is going to be on Sundays. But that said, Tuesdays and Thursdays, if I'm hacking on other stuff or if I'm painting or anything like that, and you have a question about career prep or interview prep or how to get a job, you can absolutely, always, absolutely interrupt what I'm doing. Totally okay. Because I'm here primarily to help people out. I'm just kind of goofing around with painting and 3D printing and hacking on IoT and all that kind of stuff. You can absolutely interrupt me at any time if you've got questions about how do I do this, how do I do that, how do I talk to my boss about something. More than happy to get in on any of that. Robo also redeemed dad joke of the day. So one thing I got for Christmas was one of these tear-off calendars of dad jokes. And because we're at the 5th day of January, we already have a backlog of jokes that we can pull from. So if you want to redeem those channel points, we'll start going through these. January 1st says, I'm not impressed with the organizers of the New Year's Eve celebration at Times Square. They always drop the ball. The Hello Kitty Stormtrooper helmet redeem is gone. Just because I can't wear it and my glasses at the same time, it's still sitting back here on the desk. But that redeem is gone. It was expensive and nobody was really redeeming it anyway. And I was kind of showing it off from time to time, but it was hard to wear. Like I couldn't, like I can see through the red visor, but because of my eyesight, I have to wear glasses. I can't actually see anything on my screen when I'm wearing it. Actually, I kind of want to try it now because on this screen over here, I've actually got the font like really blown up. So while I'm working, I can just kind of glance over at that monitor and see what's on there. Yeah, I'll do another dad joke, another freebie for today. The ski trip started off great, but it was all downhill from there. So yeah, we got a full year of these, so feel free to redeem that from time to time. And the to-do list, I've also got some ideas on there for other channel point redeems. If you want to suggest a channel point redeem, you can absolutely suggest other things. Someone played the Gandalf Epic Sax Guide Jam earlier. Do I know much about Salesforce development? I haven't used Salesforce in a development sort of environment since about 2013, 2014, and I haven't touched it since. So nothing current, unfortunately. That was mostly doing like SOAP XML SDKs back then when I was working at SendGrid, but I haven't touched it since I left SendGrid. RC says, I got a tear off calendar of jokes for my grandfather. He's up to May already. Well, the other idea that I had was if you redeem that channel point redemption, you can give me a date and I'll just read the joke from that date. I'll just look through the calendar and go, oh, June 23rd, here's the joke for June 23rd. Or we can just tear them off. So we might make that like a on a request thing. So Twisted Mood says, I was wondering what Salesforce development looks like. I mean, it's a whole bunch of APIs. There are like Salesforce is kind of like a customer management solution, but they've got their own databases. You can do like a lot of your own automation for, if I input a new customer, it, triggers off this whole series of automation processes and so on. But like I said, I haven't done any of that since about 2014. And that was mostly just looking stuff up in a Salesforce database using their SOAP XML SDKs back in the day. It's gotten way, way more advanced since then, but I haven't touched it since. 100 Dev Supremacy. Yeah, good to see you, Madeline. Yeah, 100 Devs is back up and running, which is fantastic. I tried tweeting out at Leon to get unbanned from Discord, but the last I checked, I'm still banned from Discord. Maybe one of these days I'll get back in the Discord community. I actually tried making another account just to see if I could get into the community, and I could, but I couldn't post anything without a phone number. And because I put the same phone number as the account that got banned, it auto-banned the new account. So I can't get into the Discord community at all because in order to post something, you have to have a verifiable phone number. And I tried a Google Voice phone number and Discord won't allow that. It says you have to have an actual SMS capable cell phone. You can't use a voice over IP like Google Voice. So I have no workarounds at this point. So if anybody knows anybody at 100 Devs where you can get in touch with Leon saying, hey, this Ian guy would really like to mentor people. If you could unban him, please. Apparently, so someone I talked to on Twitter said that Leon hasn't done any unban requests in months and months and months. So it's not just me. Like anybody that's been banned is still banned. Like nobody is being unbanned at this point. So change my number? No, I'm not going to change my number because I've had this phone number for like 20 years. Changmania, first time chat. Hello, peeps. Good to see you, Changmania. Thanks for dropping by. So Madeline says, I can try what happens. So I joined the Discord community and actually posted a link to my email newsletter in the wrong channel. And because I have 736 as part of my username, and for those that know why I have 736 in my name, it'll make sense. But apparently because I posted that link, some moderator saw it. And because I had numbers at the end of my name, they thought I was a bot account. And they didn't even try to reach out going, are you human? They just banned me. They just straight out banned me. And so I didn't have a chance to be like, oh, my bad, I put it in the wrong channel. Apparently there's a channel for like self-promotion. I didn't put it in the right channel. And so I got banned. But I've been trying to get unbanned. It's just not working out. So yeah. So the 736 is actually a shout out to my wife. It's how we met. Back in 2003, I was on a dating website that when you register, it would ask you for your desired username. And I put in Ian Douglas because that's my name. And it auto-assigned a 3-digit random number on the end. So everybody got a random name. I mean, until there were 1,000 John Smiths or something, that would be a little tricky. Maybe they weren't ever expecting to be that big. But I got Ian Douglas 736 as a username because of that. And so I started using that username everywhere. So if you were on one dating website and saw me, I would be the same username on some other website. But I also did that as my instant message handle and all that kind of stuff anyway. So that's how my wife ended up finding me, because I was a paid member on a website where she was not. And so she actually found me through Instant Messenger. She tried the username on AOL's Instant Messenger, and we connected that way. And we met for coffee, and we've been together ever since. And that was a long time ago, like 17 and a half years ago. So Madeline says, I have a friend who's a mod. So it's apparently not even a mod issue. Like, apparently mods can't even unban people. Only Leon can unban people. So I mean, if you know a mod, see if the mods can get Leon's attention to say, hey, this guy really wants to be unbanned. Because apparently he hasn't gone through and done any unbans of any kind. So it's not just me. So yeah, 2003 online dating. It was creepy to meet people back then. It's a lot more relaxed now. I mean, back then it was like, am I going to end up in the trunk of some guy's car? Nowadays, I call somebody, complete stranger, and like practically get in the trunk of their car. So anyway, speaking of which, go follow GBav. He's the #1 Lyft driver in San Diego. So, Cami Wizen. Is it okay if I just say Cami? Thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. Zombie, thanks for dropping by. Yeah, everybody go give Zombie Hedgehog a follow if you're into 3D printing. Zombie Hedgehog helped me pick out all the parts for my Voron build. I'm a couple hours away. It's like sitting on a desk over here. I took it down to Colorado Springs a week ago Friday, and had someone help me put a good chunk of it together. Not all of it. I was hoping that they were going to do all of it, but we got a lot of it done. And so the extruder's all done, all the wiring's kind of traced through. I just have to put on all the connectors and wire it up to the board, and then go through all the calibration stuff. So Pez Liz hanging out as well. Hey, Pez Liz, check it out. Hopefully Pez Liz isn't still lurking, but check it out. I got Aero bars and coffee crisps and Smarties all in a box. And I just threw out my last bag of Bits and Bytes, and it was super yummy. So yeah, I'm all about the Canadian candy bars and the Bits and Bytes. They are my favorite treats from Canada, and I miss them. So if you ever want to get on my good side, you can just buy me some and ship them. That would be fantastic. Yeah, so let's get into it. So I want to open up this box of Lego, and like the box of Lego kits, and we'll talk about the Lego kit that we're going to be working on tonight. So I already put this together. I actually bought this for myself as a birthday present back in May. I just put it together over the holidays because my family bought me the light kit to go with it. So I'll show off the light kit in the actual trench run. But I want to open up this other box and see some of the other stuff that we got. Still can't find Bits and Bytes. I mean, I thought it was just like at any kind of grocery store or a convenience store. Like, it's kind of a ubiquitous sort of snack food. But that's okay, Bezliz. No worries. Send me some Canadian chocolate in exchange for a resume review. Okay, I won't say no to that. So, I wasn't kidding. Giant box of Lego sets. So Lego introduced a whole bunch of new Lego kits January 1st, and I ordered a bunch. So we're gonna sneak peek together and see what we got in here. All right. Kit number 1. We have the Luke Skywalker X-Wing fighter, and I also have a light kit on order for this. So we'll build this on stream, and we'll install the light kit. And the idea there is it's going to be like the trench run that we're doing tonight, where we're going to like make a chat command to make the lights light up and blink and stuff like that. So we got that one. We got the new Quinjet from Marvels, complete with a whole bunch of figurines, including a very Brad Pitt looking Thor figurine. And what else we got? We got the TIE bomber. So it's like two TIE fighters together, but it's like a little bomber thing. And I'm pretty excited for the little Grunk droid. They don't have a light kit for that one yet, but it would be cool if we could hack on some lights and get some lights in there. And then this came as like a free kit for ordering stuff on New Year's Eve. It's called the Blacktron Cruiser. I have no idea what it's from, but it looked kind of neat. So I got that for free. And I got something else I can't reach. Ooh, there we go. Some other kind of like New Year's Eve sort of thing. I don't even know what this is supposed to be. Lunar New Year VIP add-on pack. Yeah, there's like a little rabbit in there. Looks like there's a turkey or like a roast chicken in here. There's some weird looking parts in here. So I'm not going to be building Lego like the Lego streamers all the time. But I will do Lego from time to time on the stream. And I promise I will always build my Lego faster than Amish Ace. Blacktron, I thought they discontinued that 30 years ago. I have no idea. If it is, then cool. And apparently I've got a second one coming because I've got another whole big giant box of Lego showing up at some point. So yeah, so that's some of the Lego. So on the Trello board, I've got a whole category just for Lego. And if you want to help me reprioritize those Legos, then you can spend some channel points and say, I want you to do this one before this other one, and we'll reprioritize some of those. But that'll be later. Let's dive into what we're here for tonight. No one's faster than Amish Ace. I don't know about that. Looks like a retro set. I mean, I did a ton of like retro Lego. I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and this doesn't look anything like what I would have put together back in the 70s and 80s. I mean, we had these yellow windshields, but all of the other parts were all gray and blue, and they had like this little NASA-looking logo with a planet with a little line around it. I don't remember ever seeing something like this. So this looks pretty neat. I'm looking forward to tinkering with that. And I do have extras on some of these sets with the idea that we may occasionally do a Lego giveaway of some kind. But not tonight. DG, good to see you. Still the same job I got from last year. All right. I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary at Postman at the end of the month, so I'm pretty excited for that. Hold on, hold the site up. All right, RC, we will hold up. Hold the set up. Which set? The Blacktron set? So here's the Blacktron set. It's called the Blacktron Cruiser. I mean, I don't know that it's a retro set. It says 18 years and up. I don't know why. I mean, there's nothing on the back that makes this look like it's, you know, adult only. But apparently it's only for adults, so shucks, I'll just have to tell my kids they're not allowed to put it together. Writing notes. So I don't know, RC, whether they are still offering it, but it was a thing where if you spend over a certain amount, they would send you that Blacktron Cruiser for free. And then apparently because I ordered on New Year's Day, they had a bunch of like these Lunar New Year kits or something that they were giving away in there as well. All right, let's switch over to this screen. I'll kind of introduce what we got going on over here on the maker bench. That camera's also not working. All right. Does this one work? All right, this one works. I'll try replugging that as I go. All right, let me switch mics. All right, hopefully y'all can still hear me. Yeah, I mean, it's showing an audio signal. So this is my maker bench. And basically, this is kind of what I've got set up. I got all my paintbrushes back here. I got all my paints sitting back here in some 3D printed stuff. So I basically 3D printed a whole bunch of little containers for my paintbrushes, all my files and tweezers and things like that. And then over here, I've got all of my sanding sticks for post-processing prints, and then just, you know, random sorts of tools and things like that. And this is the Star Wars Trench Run. And it's very, very lit up at the moment. But basically it comes with a battery pack, and when you turn on the battery pack, these lights come on. Let me turn down the other lights so that you can see that better. So the LEDs are pretty bright, but there's a whole bunch of LEDs on here. So there are a bunch of LEDs on the Death Star itself. So you got this bar, you got two bars here. There's one back here under the TIE Fighter, and then there's one down here on the kind of ground level. And then you got a Darth Vader looking TIE Fighter with the curved wings. You got another TIE Fighter here. You got this sort of cannon looking thing. And then there's an LED in the engine of the X-Wing fighter. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted the TIE fighters to kind of blink in an alternating fashion and make this cannon sort of blink in an alternating fashion. And so I had the idea, well, let's find out how much voltage these LEDs need. And then from there, we can hook it up to a Raspberry Pi. So what I did was I bought a handful of these Raspberry Pi Picos. And this is the Pico W, which has wireless capability in there. Sorry, just looking through chat. Blacktron came from 87 to 88. I was like most of the way through high school at that point, so I'm pretty sure I stopped working with playing with Lego back then, or by that point. But anyway, so I picked up a Pico W, and this is basically a little baby brother to the Raspberry Pi. It's not as powerful. It doesn't have very much RAM. It has 2 megabytes of stored memory. And so what I did is I wired it up and I wrote a little bit of Python code for it because it can run Python just to see what it would take to actually make some LEDs blink. And if you saw my my video on YouTube, you'll have seen the lights blink. But basically, I can come over here to where is that thing? Here it is. And so that's just kind of a sanity check of are all the lights working? And then it takes a moment to actually connect to Wi-Fi. And then there's like a little heartbeat pulse. You'll see the little green LED here blink every couple of seconds, and that just lets me know that it's listening on the network and it's waiting for some kind of command. And then I can actually go over to a browser. Find the right browser window. Which browser window did I use? Was it this one? I guess it will be this one. So 268.62.5. Oh, I do have it. There it is. So I can reload this, and basically you'll see the LEDs kind of pulse and alternate and flash. And so what I want to do is I want to hook up the different LEDs for the TIE fighters. So each of these is a separate LED. And basically how these LEDs work is behind the trench run, there's two of these little channels. And each LED basically plugs into one of these channels. And these LEDs are tiny, tiny, tiny little things. So that's the size of the LED here on the bottom. So it's about the size of what we would call a single stud in Lego. So that LED is about the same size. And basically how the light kits work is they tell you to use these hollow parts and the light shines through that. And then they put something translucent like these little bars or something on here. So there's a light sitting in here. This part is hollow. And so the light kind of reflects out and makes that whole bar light up. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to set up the Darth Vader TIE Fighter, this other TIE Fighter, and then this cannon, and have each of their two LEDs, because they've each got a left and a right LED, is have each of those kind of alternate back and forth. And so I basically wired up just enough of these pins that I want to sort of clip these little LED wires off the back of the trench run and hook them up to that Raspberry Pi. See if I can get this overhead camera working here. There we go. So here's kind of an overhead view of what we got going on. So we've got the trench run, and if I were to spin this thing around, you'll see each of these LEDs kind of have its own little thing. I didn't bother like making all these nice and tidy because I got this set with the intention of actually putting it on the Raspberry Pi. But basically what I want to do is I want to cut each of these wires and wire it into the Raspberry Pi. Now, not all of the wires. So what I'm thinking right now is the actual lights for the Death Star. So there's the light up here. There's two lights down here, and there's one on the bottom. And then the X-Wing engine itself. Those lights are not going to change. They just need to be on all the time. So just like if I were to turn this thing on, we see all the lights light up. The only ones that I want to alternate are the cannon and the two TIE fighters. And so we've got 6 LEDs total that we're going to do in this alternating blink, where the rest of them we just want to power all the time. So the Raspberry Pi has a constant power output up here on one of these top pins. And we're basically going to feed that to all of the lights that we want on all the time, where these other 6 are what we want to sort of alternate, similar to how you saw these other ones kind of alternate and go through. And so I've got the pins over here set up in pairs where I can come through and actually say like pin 6 and 7 are going to be for maybe the Darth Vader, and pin 8 and 9 are going to be this one, pins 10 and 11 are going to be the cannon or something like that. So that's kind of the start of where we're going to go with this. So let's go over to the code screen here. What is the green mat? So the green mat is just a cutting board, actually, that I have. It's like a cut-friendly kind of thing. So if you use X-Acto knives to cut things, it's basically like a craft cutting board, but it's like 3 feet by 2 feet. If you go to my Twitch page on the About page, I've actually got a link on there for all of my streaming equipment, and that mat should be on there. So if you want to see like actual part numbers of, like if you want to order that mat or any of the lights that I use or the cameras that I use, things like that. I'm just going to shut off chat over here just so we can kind of see these screens. So, and my face went away. Why did my face go away? For some reason it ended up way over there. All right. So on, here we go, make that a little bigger. Okay, so on these windows, or on these panels that you see up here, this is basically the bottom one is going to be the up close camera that I can sort of move around. We can see things kind of more up close. And of course, the top one is the overhead camera up here that's kind of pointing down at the desk. So I'll keep those online while we're working through everything else. Just want to show the Python code that we got that actually make those things blink and connect to the network and set up the core of the API. And then we're actually going to hack on the LEDs. So I just want to walk through this code real quick, and we'll go from there. RC sent a link for another Lego kit. Let's see if that's the same one. That looks almost identical, RC. So the picture you send is almost identical. This kit has a little bit longer cockpit from the looks of it. And the front of the hood here is gold, where the picture you sent almost makes it look white, but that might just be their picture. But this wing is also longer, where the wing on yours looks a little stubbier, but this little guy here at the front looks pretty identical. It's got the little hammer and stuff like that. So very, very close. This just looks like a slightly updated front of the spacecraft or whatever the thing is. But the tail looks, well, the tail's also a little bit different. So based on the length, the layout of the fins of the tail, actually the whole tail assembly looks a little bit different. So it's very similar. There's some extra stuff up here on top that the other model didn't have, but very, very similar. Cool. So yeah, so the first thing that I built out was a config file, and that's where I've got my my Wi-Fi credentials, because I don't want to show all of you what my Wi-Fi credentials are. And then I basically wrote a method here that just resets an LED. It basically turns an LED on for 100 milliseconds and then turns it back off. And this is the first thing that you see when we run that code. Let me point this over here. And I'm just going to rerun the code. And you'll see each of the lights blink independently when it first starts up. And that's just kind of a sanity check that says like, hey, go make sure all the lights blink. That way visually I can look at it and go, oh yeah, everything's working. Just kind of a power on test. It's something that I used to do a lot as a firmware developer of like, hey, make sure all the hardware works before you actually try to start any software. So that was something that I'm used to doing from my background. And so I built that into this project as well. From here, I've got a quick little data structure saying, okay, well, the Darth Vader TIE Fighter is going to use pins 6 and 7. The TIE Fighter is going to be 8 and 9, and that cannon is going to use pins 10 and 11, or GPIO pins, because the pin numbering is actually a little different on the actual Raspberry Pi. And then I'm basically going through, and part of what this reset does is it actually goes and it configures that pin as an output, basically saying for the Raspberry Pi, these pins can be an input or an output. So an input would be if I want to read a sensor, like a temperature sensor, humidity sensor, magnetic sensor, things like that, where the output means I want to be able to turn this pin on or off to send it power or not send it power. And so it's kind of a binary 1 or a 0 kind of thing. And so this pin command here on line 12 is basically what's telling the Raspberry Pi that I want to set this pin as an output. So we're going to be sending voltage to this pin. We're not going to be reading voltage from the pin. And so I'm returning that pin setup so I don't have to do this every time I want to blink the LEDs. So I'm basically just initializing all of that. It's going to make them all blink one time just to make sure all the LEDs work. And then it goes through and it starts to set up the network. And there's a whole bunch of methods defined. I'm going to skip all these, but we'll come back to them. And what I wanted to be able to do with this, so if I go run that pewpew command again, what I didn't want to have was, I didn't want it to be like, make the Darth Vader TIE Fighter blink, now make the other TIE Fighter blink, now make that cannon blink. Like I didn't want them to be sequential. I wanted them to be concurrent. I wanted them to happen all at the same time. Unfortunately, because this Raspberry Pi only has 2 cores, I couldn't do a lot of multi-threading. So the Python library on this is very limited as far as what it can do for parallel tasks. And so when I do the pewpew command, I wanted them to all kind of blink at the same time. And so because I couldn't use threading for that, I went with the asynchronous library in Python and basically built an asynchronous API with this. So it's listening to a request, and then it's kind of adding things to an event loop. So if you're used to doing JavaScript development, JavaScript works on the same sort of mechanism of an event loop where you can say, hey, I want to go run this thing, and I'll check back in with you later to see if you're done. That's basically what I've set up here on the Raspberry Pi. So the first thing that we're doing is we're saying, I want to go run this main function. That main function, first thing it does is it goes and it connects to the network. It just sets up all the TCP/IP stuff that it gets the IP address, prints it out, just to make sure that it's actually connected to my Wi-Fi, that I can reach out from my chatbot to actually do the pewpew command and make things blink. And then from here, it's going to go call this serve client. So what this is doing is it's saying, hey, go listen to see if anybody's connected, or like sit and wait for somebody to actually connect and then handle that process. Otherwise, it's just going to sit here and it's going to do this heartbeat. And that heartbeat is what's making that green light blink every 2 seconds up here. So it's calling that reset function again, which just turns the light on, turns it off, turns the light on, turns it off. And then it sleeps for 2 seconds, just so it's not like constantly blinking, or it's blinking so fast it just looks like it's always on. And so I'm just doing like a little 2-second wait on that. And so this is basically just sitting in a loop forever. But if I call this from the browser, it actually wakes up this process saying, hey, we have a client request coming in that we need to go answer. And so we can go take a look at that code. So the first thing it does is it's printing this stuff out in the debugger here, that we can see, hey, a client connected. And then it's going through and it's reading a line of that HTTP request. So the way that HTTP works is you get kind of the first line of your HTTP verb, the path, and then the protocol version. And then it does a new line character, and then it's going to do all the headers. And after the headers, it does a blank line. And then if there's a body, you would process the body. But because we're doing this as a GET request, there's going to be no body. So what we're doing in here is we're basically saying, okay, go read the first line of text. And it's basically going to stop as soon as it sees the new line characters in here, which is the \r\n. And then it prints out what that request line is. And so this is where we can see that request line of we got the get verb. We have the path, which I've named as /API/v1/pewpew. And that my browser sent this as an HTTP version 1.1 request, and then it had a new line character. And then what we're doing is we're saying like, hey, until I see that blank line, just don't do anything. So it's going to go read another line of text until it sees that blank line, and then it's going to stop this while loop. So again, it does this first line of the get request, and then any headers that come in, and then it's going to see a blank line, and then there would be a body, if anything. But because it's a get, there's no body. And so this is basically saying, go ignore all the headers. So we don't want to bother with any of the headers. I'm not doing authentication. It's all on my local network. I don't need to authenticate to this API. And so all I really care about is that first request line coming in. And then what I have to do from there is I have to say, okay, well, does it actually match API v1 pewpew? The way that Chrome works, let me switch over to my browser here for a second. Go to Chrome. So the way the browser works, when I send this request, it's getting a JSON response back, and I'll talk about that in a sec. But Chrome will send two requests to my API. The first one is for /API/v1/pewpew. The second request is trying to get a little icon file. And that icon file is what we see up here in the tab. So in the case of Twitch, we see the Twitch logo. In the case of Trello, we see the Trello logo. We see the Trello logo over here, or we see the Twitch logo over here. But because I don't have like a logo icon or anything like that, Chrome is just going to show me this generic sort of globe. But it still makes a second request to the API saying, go call API v1 pewpew. And then, by the way, if you happen to have the, that little icon, let's do the, let's give me that icon so we can display that. But we don't need the icon. So it just kind of gets dropped at that point. So let's go back over to the code. So this check here is basically saying, go see if this string exists inside this bigger string. That's what the .find call is doing here. So we're basically saying, does this exist anywhere inside of this string? And if it does, it'll give us a number, and that number in this case will be greater than 0 because it's an offset. So it's looking at the offset of like how many characters it had to read before it saw that substring. Now, the reason that I'm not checking that until much later is because I wanted to send back a 202 response code saying, hey, I got your request. I'm going to go handle it in the background. This is to kind of speed things up a little bit. Not that my API is getting really hammered with a ton of requests, but this is kind of a nice thing because I want these lights to blink in the background. I don't want to make the client wait. Like if blinking all those lights took 30 seconds, I don't want their browser to spin and wait 30 seconds before getting a response going, cool, everything worked out. And so the 202 status code that I've got highlighted here is basically saying, I got your request. I'm going to go handle it, but I have nothing more to tell you right now. And so we're just going to send back this status OK as a JSON payload. And then we're just going to go ahead. We're going to send that back to the client, and we're going to hang up on them. So the way that HTTP requests happen is, I pick up the phone, I call the server, I say, this is what I want. The server gives me that, and then we decide to hang up. And so this is where the server says, hey, here's your 202, here's the JSON response, and I'm hanging up. And so the server hangs up the connection. And then we go through and say, okay, if we got that API call, now I want to go make these things actually blink. And so that's what this create task is doing, is it's basically saying, I want to go take this function called pewpew and all of its parameters, and I want to add this to my event loop. And so the event loop, again, with asynchronous calls, is just going to go happen, in whatever order the event loop happens to see them kind of get slotted in. And it's just going to go run those things in the event loop as it needs to. And so this is allowing me to run all of the blinky lights concurrently instead of, like I said, go make Darth Vader blink, go make the other TIE fighter blink, go make the cannon blink, and do them one after the other. I want them to all blink at the same time. And so I'm using the event loop for that. And that's where we use create task. All right, so let's go take a look at the pewpew command and see what this is doing. So we have Darth, we have TIE, and we have cannon. And those names actually correspond to this data structure that I put up here at the very top. So we have our Darth Vader, we have our TIE Fighter, and we have our cannon. And so it's just going to access that data structure. Now, these values here, the first value that I put in here is how many times do I want that to blink? And then how quickly in milliseconds do I want that to blink? So it's going to be on for 100 milliseconds, and then off for 100 milliseconds, and then on for 100 milliseconds, and off for 100 milliseconds. And so it's going to blink each LED 5 times. So that's what the pewpew command is going to do for us. So up here, now the other thing that I didn't want is I didn't want these things to be like, okay, everybody blink the left one now, everybody blink the right one now, everybody blink the, and I didn't want it to be synchronized. I wanted them to be kind of random as far as when they started. And so I introduce a random amount of time before that will actually start its little pew, pew, pew. And so the cannon might fire first, or Darth Vader might fire first, or maybe Han shoots first, I don't know. But this is gonna add just a little bit of random time before that thing starts blinking its LEDs. And then it's going to go through and it's actually going to go create a new task saying, okay, go blink these 2 LEDs, where I give it the left pin and the right pin with that count and the speed. And then it's just doing some debugging, saying it finished setting all that up. And then it's actually coming in here. Now it starts off by turning off the lights. In case they happen to be on right now, it's going to turn them off. And then it's going to toggle these lights. Now, because I want it to flash 5 times, I have 10 instructions. LED on, LED off, LED on, LED off, LED on, LED off, on, off. And so I have to do 10 instructions. So if I want this to blink 5 times, I need this loop to run 10 times. That's why I have the multiply by 2 here. Now the first thing it's going to do, they're both starting off, and I've got pin 1 and I've got pin 2. So pin 1 is going to toggle, which turns it on. And then it waits for that amount of time here by sleeping that many milliseconds. So it's going to wait 100 milliseconds, and then it's going to toggle pin number 2 and turn it on. Now it's immediately going to go back to the for loop where it toggles pin 1. It's going to turn that one back off, and then it's going to wait another 100 milliseconds. And so now this light is going to be on for 100 milliseconds. This one's going to be off for 100 milliseconds. And then pin 2 toggles, then pin 1 toggles, and it's going to be on for 100 milliseconds. And then this toggles, and this toggles off. And then this and then this toggles, and then this toggles, and then this toggles, and this toggles. And so that's how we end up with this really nice back and forth blink of left, right, left, right, left, right, 5 times. So that's it. That's all we had to build. And then for the actual blink itself, this was just something I was using as a test, but this was coming through saying, hey, just blink and toggle that thing. And that would be useful for a single LED, but because all of these things on the trench run have 2 LEDs, I decided to kind of do that up as a blink 2 kind of command. Twisted Mood says, I missed out on the beginning. Is this considered embedded programming? Yeah, basically, because we're writing this code as embedded code to run on this little hardware that we see here. Oops, I just killed Luke Skywalker. And so yeah, this is basically an embedded platform, this tiny little Raspberry Pi. And so yeah, this is effectively embedded software. Embedded software is really like really low level kind of programming, although in this case, we're actually using Python over here, which is a high level language. So some purists might be like, well, it's not really embedded because you're using Python, and Python's not a low level language. That's fine. I used to write C in assembly. I'm much happier writing Python. So we're going to write Python. But that's all the code that we needed. So this is basically just sitting in a loop. We still see that little green LED blinking over here every 2 seconds. That lets us know that it's still listening to our network. So if I come back over and refresh the pewpew API, we see them all blink alternating. So right now, these 2 LEDs back here are, let's see, those are the Darth Vader pins. And then I'm going to have pins for all of the other ones. So I'm going to actually change my view, and I'm going to work on the workbench over here. Because basically now I've got to take these really, 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 really tiny LEDs. I've got to cut these wires and splice them and figure out how I'm going to get them on the Raspberry Pi. That's gonna take some doing. I might need to go get my soldering iron, and we'll solder these things together maybe. But this is the what we're gonna kind of hack on. And then actually before we do that, let's do the chatbot. So I'm gonna make a pewpew command for the chatbot to actually wire up the lights as we currently have them. So you can all do like pewpew, and you'll see these lights blink. For the work that I do as I plug and unplug these things, there won't be any danger to the Raspberry Pi for me to let you all continue doing the pew pew while I'm working on the lights, because I've got a lot of little wires to clip and cut and solder and things like that. And so you'll be able to kind of tinker with that kind of as we go. So let's go do the chatbot real quick. Let me switch over to VS Code. And we'll go build a let's go build a chatbot command. All right, so these are all my static responses. So what we need to do in here is we actually need to make a command in my chatbot that can call an API. Well, if you do !joke right now in chat, it'll actually go call this dad joke API that I wrote about a year ago when I was interviewing. I was interviewing a Datadog, and they're like, hey, we want you to build an API, deploy it in Docker to a cloud container. And so I built this dad joke API, deployed it, and it's still running. Not paying anything for it, so Datadog hasn't asked me for money. But if you do !joke in chat, it's actually going to go call this command. It's going to go call that API, and it's going to return a dad joke in chat. So if somebody wants to do bang joke, then it'll call that API. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually build out the API to call pew pew and make it look just like this command here. So I'm using a Python library here for my chatbot. This Python library is called twitch.io. And so we're going to start with a decorator. Oops, it's going to be bot.command. And these are also asynchronous calls. And we're going to call this one pew pew. I'll just call it pew pew for now. And this needs a context. And this context is basically going to allow us to figure out like what Twitch channel were we on when this command got called. And so we're going to have a URL in this case, but this is going to go to my local network. So this is 192.168.86.205. Now, what I did on my network is when I connected the Raspberry Pi has, well, every Wi-Fi device has a machine address, and we call it a machine address code or a MAC address. Every machine has a unique MAC address. What I did in my router here at home is I said, this MAC address is always going to get this IP address, no matter what. So I'm never going to have to come back into my chatbot and go, oh, my pew pew doesn't work anymore. I got to go in and change the IP and restart my chatbot. I know that this Raspberry Pi is always going to get this IP address. So our path was API v1 pew pew. And then I'm going to call this. And then the await here is basically saying, I want to go send a message back to Twitch chat, letting you know that it worked. So we're just going to do send message. And this is going to the context. So this is going to understand, oh, you came from Ian Douglas 736 on Twitch. And so I'm going to send the chat response back to that. And this is where we want to send back some sort of clever message like, use the force Luke. Okay. So I'm going to save that. And if all that worked out okay, I'm going to go reboot my chatbot over here. So I have a chatbot command that actually reboots my chatbot. So yeah, we're going to make the Lego light up. So right now I just have LEDs, but we're going to connect the LEDs from the Trench Run kit to the Raspberry Pi. And so we're actually going to make these lights blink instead of these lights. So I'm going to gradually unplug these lights, and we're going to plug in these lights instead. That's where we're going. So I did not type something properly in here. Oh, this is commands plural. All right, so I got to wait for my chatbot to start back up again. I have it set in a loop, so if I have a syntax error, I can go correct it, and it just starts it back up. All right, so our chatbot's back. So to test this out, we can do joke. And it goes and calls my dad joke API. What do you call it when James Bond takes a bath? 007. All right, so now if we do bang pew pew, we should see these lights blink. So bang pew pew. Hey, it worked. All right. So if any of you want to try it, hands off my keyboard, so you know it's not me like touching anything. Somebody go ahead and run a check command of bang pew pew, and you'll see the lights change. My hands are off the keyboard. So there we go. So the pew pew command works. It calls that API, and it's going to make lights blink. So now all we have to do is wire up the lights from the trench run to the Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to switch microphones, I'm going to switch views, and kind of go into sort of maker mode over here. So again, if you have questions about interview stuff, career stuff, there is a channel point redemption you can do called Ahem, and that'll just play a little audio clip of Lisa Simpson or something. And that'll get my attention that there's something in chat to pay attention to. You can absolutely interrupt me at any time if you've got interview related questions or career related stuff. Okay, so let me switch view over this view. So here's our overhead view. I'm actually going to switch over to the zoomed in view. I bought another Stream Deck, but I have to set up all the buttons on it. Where? Oh, there it is. Why does it sound like it just unplugged that camera? I didn't unplug anything. All right, so again, we've got these tiny, tiny itty bitty little wires. Now I reached out to Brixmax. This is the company that actually makes these LEDs, and they're super, super tiny. Sorry, this camera's not super focused. But I basically reached out to them and said, how much voltage do these LEDs take? And they said 5 volts. And I'm like, well, sure, for all of them, because the battery pack that came with the trench run is 4.5 volts. This little piece that came with a different LED set. So these pouches are basically how they ship their LEDs. This set of pouches was actually an LED kit that I bought a year ago that I never used. But it came with this little battery pack. Now this has a couple of coin batteries that are these little 2032 batteries. And these are 3 volts each, which means this power supply is 6 volts. And they said, no, you can power one LED off of 5 volts. And I'm like, okay, well, let's verify that because I don't want to burn out my LEDs. So I'm going to plug in just a single LED here. And again, these things are really tiny. These little connectors are only 2 millimeters. So in theory, if I turn this thing on, this LED comes on and doesn't like explode in my hand. So yep, it can take up to 6 volts. They told me 5 volts. Now the thing with this Raspberry Pi can only output 3.3 volts. So it's probably going to light up the LED, but they might be a little bit dim. But that's okay because what I have going on in the background here, like with all my other lights and so on, with the nanoleaf panels and things like that, it can get pretty distracting if they're too bright. So it might be nice if these things aren't super ridiculously bright. Like when I turn this on right now, this is like overpowering the camera and whatever. Like these things are really super bright. So if I can tone these down to 3 volts instead of 5 volts, then that'll be better. So this battery pack is only 4.5 volts. Yep, someone's doing the pew pew. So we know that's working. She said, you said that wrong. Now I need to become very pedantic about the code and never actually finish the project. No. We're actually going to finish this. We're streaming until we're done. So so this battery pack is only 4.5 volts, and they all light up pretty brightly. So I'm hoping that by using the 3.3 volt output of the Raspberry Pi, that it's going to power these okay. So what I want to do, what I'm going to start with, is I want to try and get into that 3.3 volt power off the Raspberry Pi and see if I can power this one little LED. Now, this is going to require me to destroy these things and actually like take apart the wires and stuff in here. So I'm going to attempt to do some of this, hopefully in a way that I can repair it and put it back together later on if I need to. So yeah, there are channel point redemptions for changing the nanoleaf lights and changing the Govey lights and all that kind of stuff. I know you can't see any of that in the background because apparently that other camera shut off. I don't know why it shut off. I mean, all you're going to be staring at is a side view of my head, so I'm not too worried about that camera being off right now. But if I go back into chat mode, Try to figure out what's going on. All right, so if I take this whole thing apart, sure enough, we got two of those 2032 batteries in here. I won't say the name brand, but it's the little bunny rabbit that's still going. And we've got just some really, really fine wires in here. These wires are really, really tiny. How exactly are these wires? These wires are 0.37 millimeters wide. So if any of you have a 3D printer and you've printed something at 0.2 layer height, each of these wires is about 2 layers of filament thick. So these things are really tiny. All right, well, let's go destroy some wire. I'm gonna clip this somewhere around here. All right, so there's our battery pack. I'll repair this later on if I need to. For now, I'm gonna put the batteries back in. Actually, which way do these go? Positive side down, positive side up. I don't like to have stray parts kicking around if I don't need to. So I'm just going to put this back together and we'll put this aside and we'll use this for another project maybe. I have other ideas for things like this. So I'm just going to reattach this real quick and then we'll carry on from here. Eric Garcia, good to see you in chat as well. Yep, so we updated the chatbot for the pewpew command. There we go, it's that. So yeah, so you can do bang pew pew and you'll see these LEDs over here in front of me, you'll see them blink. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be attaching the LEDs from the trench run where these LEDs are plugged in. And so then this Raspberry Pi is going to basically make these lights blink anytime somebody does a pew pew command. And we've got other light kits and things like that that we want to kind of tinker with over time as well. So I'm going to unwind these wires a little bit, and I've got to see if I've got wire cutters fine enough. It can strip these wires without completely destroying the actual wire inside, because these are tiny. Like I said, I might need to go get my soldering iron at some point. But we'll try it without soldering to begin with. Almost wondering if I can strip this just with fingernails. No, not quite. All right, let me go find some wire cutters or wire strippers. Not sure where my wire strippers are. All right, so I'm just going to try this by hand and see whether this works or not. I looked away, now he's gone. I'm back. Here I am. So that kind of worked. All right, so strip this one. Okay, so good news is these wires strip really, really easily. And now we've got positive and negative on here. So they claimed that I could power these up with 5 volts. So I've got another USB power thing here. And I'm just going to test this real quick and make sure that this is going to work. So if I touch this on here, that LED should light up. hopefully without breaking anything else in the process. Now the thing with LEDs is they are technically diodes. That's what the D in diode means, which means I actually have to put these on the right leads. So the black one goes on the black one, and the white one goes to the other power. Well, that turn on. I hope I didn't kill my LED, but I did kill Luke Skywalker again. I might move the trench run out of the way until we're actually ready to use that one. All right, so in theory, we have a 3.3 volt. All right, let's set you over there for a minute. Let's just double check. Let's see if this will work on 1.5 volts. Oh, I stripped the plug end. I'm an idiot. These things are so small. I stripped the end with the plug, not the actual LED. That's okay though. I can actually use that plug for later, for powering up all the other lights on the trench run. So I actually need to cut the wire with the LED. So let's try that again. I actually didn't need to cut the one off the battery pack. All right, let's strip these wires. That would explain why nothing lit up when I did the other one. All right, so what I'm noticing about these wires is these, I mean, you're not going to be able to discern this probably on this camera. You can kind of see it here. There's actually multiple wires inside here. It's not a single strand of wire, what we would call a solid core wire. These are actually braided internally. All right, so let's see if we can power this LED with 1.5 volts. So 1.5 volts actually lights up that LED just fine. Or sorry, this is 3 volts. Lights up that LED just fine. But again, it only lights up if I do it with proper polarity. So that works just off a coin battery. And again, these things are 3-volt batteries. So I'm already pretty confident that if I hook it up to a 3.3 volt power supply over here, that LED is going to come on just fine. So let's go watch that happen. See if I can actually separate these wires enough and touch some leads over here without shorting anything else out. All right, so you can see it flashing in my hand. That's because I'm not making very good contact with the power leads. But it is definitely getting power and ground from the Raspberry Pi. All right. So let me unplug this, plug it back in, and go rerun that code so that you can all still continue to do the pewpew command. All right. So that's our little self-test. And as soon as we see that green LED flash on a regular basis over here, then we can be sure that we're actually ready to go with the pewpew. All right, so heartbeat's on. So somebody wants to try pewpew, then it should work. Even when he blows it up, if he tries to power it from the USB. Nope, it actually worked. So surprise, Icy Black. But good to see you in chat. And Estragoon, thanks for the resubscribe for 7 months. Appreciate that. So all the bits and subs on the channel are going into our diversity in tech. You may have noticed when you joined the stream tonight, I've got a new donation thing set up for our next group, and that group is basically going to increase diversity in a way that I wasn't really expecting to find. But basically, what we're going to be raising money for next is a group that helps people who get out of prison to find jobs. I've been a hiring manager in the past where I couldn't hire somebody, even though I wanted to. I couldn't hire somebody because they had a criminal background. The type of work that I was doing at the time, we were working with a lot of government entities and other enterprise level customers that basically barred us from having people with criminal backgrounds working on certain aspects of our code. And we weren't a big enough company to isolate this one individual to only work on a certain portion of code. And so I had to not hire this person. And I've been disappointed about it ever since. And so I saw this group actually through Twitch. And so the donation thing is on there. You're welcome to donate to it. And then for 2023, one of the things that we talked about at the end of 2022 was giving you all the ability to directly donate to the company and not have to donate to me and then I donate to the company, but I'll still be able to see how much you all donate. And so I'm still going to match the funds. So I'm still going to do all of that. You'll still see all of that on the financial transparency page. But basically, you'll be able to donate directly. And if you're in a country that allows tax deductible donations, then you will get the tax deduction for that. Okay, so we know that this LED is going to power off at 3.3 volts. We know that's going to work. So now that we know that, I'm pretty confident that I can destroy this and build this into what we need it to be. Now, one of the things that I did is on this end that we clipped. For the trench run lights that we're going to keep on all the time, so I'm going to move this camera, sorry if it's a little shaky. So we had a light up here on the top, and we've got these two lights over here. We've got the light on the bottom, and we've also got the X-Wing engine. Those lights are going to stay on no matter what. And so all of those lights can actually go into this little connector, and we can hopefully power this connector off of the permanent 3.3 volt line over here on the Raspberry Pi. They're up in this corner, as opposed to using the pins over here. These pins over here are what I'm controlling in the software to say, send voltage to this pin, but not to this pin, send voltage to this pin, but not that pin. And that's what's allowing us to alternate the blinky lights. So if you do the pewpew command, it's basically saying, send voltage to this one, but not this one. Now toggle that. Don't send it to this one, send it to this one instead. And that's how you see the blinky light coming back and forth. But for the power that we're going to get from up here with the 3 volts, I want to plug that into here so that all of the trench run lights on here can, like, I don't have to destroy those little wires, that they'll be able to plug into here, and those will just get constant power all the time. So as soon as this gets plugged into the Raspberry Pi, those will get powered up right away. So that's what I want to figure out next is, you know, in all of these plugs here on the back, which of these plugs are actually the plugs that we want to keep on all the time? Because right now, these are pretty mixed up. Like I know this plug, for example, is the one up here on top. And so this one I want to make sure ends up in a socket that gets power all the time. So I kind of want to trace this back down, and we're going to unplug that socket. Figure out which one it is. That's the one there. These things are really tiny. All right, so there's that wire. So now I can plug that wire into this socket, and then we can just power this socket off of that permanent light. Now, one of the things I don't know is which of these other plugs are for which. I'm pretty sure, well, I know these two are one of the TIE fighters, but these ones got mixed up. And one of these is a bar on the ground, and the other two are the other TIE fighter. I think these two are the TIE fighter, and this was the one on the ground. And so I might have to plug these different ones into this constant power and see which ones actually show up so that we can identify which one is the left LED, which one is the right LED, so that I can wire them up appropriately. And so I'm probably going to need to get some kind of masking tape or something like that to label these things as we work tonight. All right, so in theory, now if that's the LED, that's not the one I want. If I plug in the other end of this socket, or the other connector here into this socket, and I get these things set up properly to connect to the Raspberry Pi, then we should see this light come on. And hope that I don't short something out again. So actually, just to make that a little bit easier for myself, I don't accidentally short something else out, I'm going to use a couple more jumper wires here. And that's our constant 3.3 volt power. I'm going to grab some alligator clips here. And then we have a ground line. I'm going to use a darker color for that. Use a blue for that one. And that one I can just plug into this channel because that's where I have a ground line running anyway. And now I've got alligator clips that I can clip onto these guys. So in theory, if I clip this one onto here, and I clip the other end of the red one onto this other wire, we should see this light on top of the trench run show up. Let me see if I can get back to the overhead camera. You can all see what I see. All right. So in theory, if I connect this white wire to this red clip, we should see this LED come on. There it is. So that powers up just fine on 3.3 volts. So what I want to do now is, now that we know that this is powered constantly with a 3.3 volt power or source of power, what I can do now is I can unplug all these other plugs and we can gradually plug them all into here and we can identify which plug is which. So let me go grab some masking tape so that I can label these things as we work. Hey, Blacksmith Pop, good to see you. Thanks for dropping by. For some reason, I cannot find my masking tape or my other tape. All right, that's two things I can't find tonight. First one was my wire strippers, and now I can't find my masking tape. I have other scraps of tape that I can use. Less ideal, but still have other bits of tape I can use. This is cool. I can make something physical happen with a command in a Twitch chat. Yeah, this is what I wanted to get into on the stream. I wanted to have some fun with this kind of stuff and do more practical kinds of things like this, where it wasn't just, go build a website. I mean, building a website's cool. There's a lot of technology that goes into that, and there's a lot of work that goes into that. But having something fun like, make a Twitch chatbot command, interact with some lights is kind of fun. So yeah, if you do the pewpew command, you'll see these lights blink. You can't see it because the other camera stopped working again. But if you do, there are nanoleaf commands that you can run. It'll actually toggle the nanoleaf lights in the background here, which I will see, but you will not. Let me go see if I can get that camera working. All right, something just made that super dark. In a little bit. What is that? Let's try that. And let's see if I can get something working here. still here, but it's like way off screen for some reason. Here I am. Yeah, so there are nanoleaf commands that you can run and Guppy lights that you can run. That'll control like this light here in the background on the desk. It'll also control the nanoleaf lights behind me as well. Okay, so we know that this has power, so now I can just start unplugging all these other wires, and we can gradually figure out what's what. I'm just going to start by unplugging all the things, and then we'll go through and we'll label them all. All right, so I got another one of those circuits that I can use later. So let's see, we've got this one plugged in already. Let's go take a look at, I don't know, this random plug. Let's go see what this plug does. Getting back here. All right, so that's our Canon right. So that's our right Canon. Sorry, I just realized you can't really see it. But that's our right Canon LED. So I'm going to make a label for that one real quick. All right, so that is Canon right. So we're just going to label that as C for Canon. And come on. CR. All right, so that's our right Canon. Let's find another random one. Plug that into our power source here. This might be the other Canon. Yep, so that's our Canon. Actually, no, that's our Canon right. The other one's Canon left. Okay, so I need to relabel that one. Oh, shoot, I just let go of that other one. Yeah, so that's our Canon right. So that's actually our right Canon. CR. And then this other one is going to be our Canon left. Okay, so we're a good chunk of the way here so far. We only have to label the TIE fighters, and then everything else is going to be the actual Death Star itself, and those ones we don't need to label because they're just going to get power all the time. So I only need to find the 2 TIE fighters, and then we're all finished. All right, so I know that the TIE fighters are going to be these ones like back here somewhere. I'm pretty sure these 2 are going to be TIE fighters. So I'm going to go unplug all of these plugs here as well. And here's the other socket. And this socket is actually plugged into our battery pack. So let's get that out of the way. Okay. So I'm pretty sure these 2 are running to one of the TIE fighters. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the TIE fighter up here at the front. So if that's true, this is just going to be, we'll just call it TIE fighter. We're going to have left and right on here. Actually, this brings up a good question. When we talk about left and right, is this the left side of the cannon, this is the right side of the cannon, or are we doing this is the left and this is the right, looking at it head on? Which way should we do this? Because I think I just mislabeled these, where I said this was the left one and this was the right one. But that's if we're looking at it head on. If we look at it top down, this is the left one and this is the right one. So how should we label these? Just looking back at chat here for a sec. So yeah, so I have an API running on the Raspberry Pi, and that API is basically connected to my Twitch chatbot. So the Twitch chat gets the exclamation point pew pew. The chatbot interprets that, sends an API request to the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi makes the lights blink, and then sends an answer back to my chatbot, which the chatbot then sends a message back to Twitch chat saying use the force link. So the code's not that spread out. I've got the chatbot and I've got the code running on the Raspberry Pi. So there's only 2 pieces of code. But yeah, we're gonna have to figure out how we actually call these things left and right. So this is our front TIE fighter. So this is our TIE fighter, not the Vader. So the TIE fighter, do I call this one left because I'm looking at it head on? Or if we consider top down, this is actually the right one. So how do we label these? I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter as long as we're consistent about which one we consider to be left and right. So do I call, so help me out in chat. Do we label these as a top down or a head on kind of approach? How should we label these? The configuration wasn't that tricky, no. There's some really good documentation on how to get this Raspberry Pi on your network. And then it was really just knowing how to build an asynchronous API, to know how to build the API endpoint to get the chatbot connected. So patient right left, I have no idea what that means, Icy. So the patient's right and left, so that's the top-down view. So should we do a top-down view or should we do a face-on kind of view? I'm imagining you're thinking top-down. So top-down, this would be the TIE fighter right, and this would be the left. Which means I need to relabel the cannon as right and left. So are we doing top-down? All right, Robo also says top-down as well. All right, so this is going to be our cannon right. This will be our cannon left. Okay, so that means this is going to be our TIE fighter right. So I'm pretty confident already because I had to trace all these tiny little wires in the first place. This is going to be our TIE fighter left. These plugs are tiny. Yep, so that's our TIE fighter left. All right, so we'll label that one. And then basically what I'm going to do on stream is I'm just going to strip off all these little plugs on the end. And we're going to figure out how to wire them up actually to the Raspberry Pi. And again, I might get into some soldering where I actually solder the wires onto the pins maybe. But all of these have common ground wires. And I'm going to have to basically put all those together onto a single ground pin. That one might be a little tricky to get all these together. I have a number of ground pins on the Raspberry Pi that we can use. This is going to be our TIE fighter left. Okay, so all we have left is Vader. I'm pretty sure it's going to be these two. And if I'm right, these are the last ones that we need to label. Nope, that one is one of our Death Star pieces. So this one's definitely going to be Darth Vader. Blade of some sort. Just a question of which one. I'm getting that plug. Ooh, that one actually didn't power anything at all. Or is it one of the other ones on the front? Okay, that's another one on the front. So those were both Death Star. It's not either of those. I'm guessing this one is also going to be Death Star. Yep, that's also a Death Star plug. Which means we only have a few other plugs that it could be. We've got these ones here, which are really long, which means the LED is close by. I've got this one that's really short, which means it's kind of far away. I'm a little puzzled now which one is the Darth Vader plugs. I would have thought it would have been these other ones here. No, Darth Vader definitely came through here. We've only got 3 plugs. 2 of these are Darth Vader, and one of them is the Death Star. Let's double check this. Solderless breadboard makes it much easier to change things. Yep, for sure. Absolutely. What kind of 3D printer? So yeah, RC Maniac got the answer for that. Thanks, RC. I have 2 of the Bamboo Labs X1 Carbon with the AMS. I have 3 AMS systems. And then I've got 2 Prusa Mark III S's. That's also one of the bottom ones here. Which means these 2 have to be Darth Vader. And then I've got the 2, and then I have a Anycubic Mono X 6K, Photon Mono X 6K. All right, so these other ones are our Darth Vader plugs. Okay, so this is Darth Vader's left, and this one is Darth Vader right. Okay. All right, so we found all the plugs we need, which means all the plugs that don't have tape are just going to get constant power all the time. So this is Darth Vader right. This one is Darth Vader left. Now we can have some fun actually mangling some wires. Darth Vader left. Okay, so we got everything labeled that we need to label. So I can get all this other tape out of the way here, just so it's out of the way. Yeah, definitely go check out MakerLink or MakerDeck if you want to see other people building stuff on 3D printers. I'll be back on there eventually myself. I've got cameras set up on the Bamboo printers. I just need to basically set up another version of OBS to actually be able to stream those. But I've got all the hardware I need. I've got everything I need to actually make it stream. I just got to get around to it. Okay, so all these remaining plugs then can go into that channel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug the power. And all these remaining plugs that are not labeled, I'm just going to plug all those directly into this. So we know that all of those plugs are going to get power all the time once we get this wired into the 3.3 volt like continuous power. But these other like 5 or 6 plugs, they're going to get power all the time. I'm just going to plug them all in on the same circuit. And then we can send just a single source of power into this, and they'll all share that 3.3 volts. And they'll all light up for us. So once I get all these plugged in, what I'll do is I'll actually test that theory where I actually plug this back into the 3.3 volts and make sure that all the lights come on and that they're not too dim, basically. We want to make sure that they're all bright enough that we can actually see them. And then once they're all working, once everything's plugged in and working on that Raspberry Pi, then I'll actually get that Raspberry Pi mounted somehow on the back of the trench run here. Will I be using my own camera for the Bamboo, or did I update the latest firmware? So I have the latest firmware on the Bamboos. But when I was on MakerDeck in the past, I actually set up an OBS stream where I was rotating through several cameras. So I had 3 Prusa Mark IIIs at the time that I was using on MakerDeck, and they were all set up on Octoprint with various cameras. And I basically wrote some Python script that cycled through the views, and so every couple of seconds it was changing my camera to some other view. And I'm going to do the same thing with the Bamboos, the Mark IIIs, and the resin printer. So I'm going to put a camera on the resin printer. I'm going to put cameras on the Bamboos. or I'm going to use the cameras from the Bamboos, and I'm going to grab that camera feed from Bamboo Studio for now. But eventually I'll use the firmware version, and then the 2 camera feeds from Octoprint for the Mark IIIs, and I'll just cycle through on that. So one of my to-do items on that Trello board, if you do exclamation point to do, you'll see all the things that I want to do in 2023. And one of those things is to actually build like a little website where I can go in and I can check boxes of like, I know this printer's printing something, I know this one's not printing something, and it'll take them out of that rotation so people on MakerDeck aren't looking at a idle printer that's not doing anything. All right, so in theory now, if I plug this little plug in here, we should see a whole bunch of these trench lights light up. Let me prop it up a little bit here so you can see these other ones. Well, you don't really see it very well that way either. Yep, pewpew works. All right, let's find that little power plug again. All right, here goes nothing. All right, so we got our X-Wing engine. We got our X-Wing engine turned on. We got this bar up here turned on. We got the one on the floor down there turned on. And these 2, or these 3 on the back wall, they're all lit up. And they're all lit up off a single 3-volt power supply coming off our Raspberry Pi. So these remaining plugs that we have labeled with tape over here are going to be the TIE Fighter, the Darth Vader, and the Cannon. And those are the 6 LEDs that are going to alternate. So when you do the pew pew command, you see these lights kind of alternating back and forth. We're going to start with, I don't know, one of these 3. Which one should we start with? The TIE Fighter, Darth Vader, or the Cannon? And I'll basically clip those, and we're going to figure out a way to like wire all the ground wires together and have a single ground wire back to the breadboard or back to the Raspberry Pi. And then all of the other ones, we'll figure out how to socket those onto here as well. So which of our 3 pew pews do we work on? So let me know in chat. Twisted Mood votes for TIE Fighter. Should we do a poll? Let's do like an actual poll. All right, so we're gonna do a quick little 2-minute poll. So go ahead and vote for me and let me know which one we want to wire up first. I'm gonna go get a couple more wires. I'll be right back. How are we doing on the vote over here? Everything's got a single vote. That's perfect. It's very, very democratic of everybody. So if it ends in a tie vote, then I get to decide. So y'all better pick which one do we wire up first. Classic Twitch ball for sure. All right, Darth Vader. Darth Vader 1. All right, so we're going to wire up Darth Vader first. Need to dry off my hands because I just wet my hands to wet a sponge from my soldering iron. So we're going to need to solder these wires because they're so tiny. What I decided I'm going to do to best sort of work with the Raspberry Pi is I'm going to use these female connectors. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder these tiny little wires onto these much thicker wires so that I can use the female end of this to actually plug them into the Raspberry Pi. So that's where we're going to go with this. So I'm going to unplug all of this stuff for now. So the pewpew is also not going to work for a little while, just so I can have a little more space here to do some work. So I'm going to move out some cameras and stuff like that, or one of the cameras at least, so that I can get some soldering in here. So I'm going to unplug our power for the moment, and then we're going to move all this out of the way. It's actually, no, y'all can still do pew pew. I'll try to keep that on camera a little bit. Then we're going to move this up here out of the way. And then we'll actually get in and start clipping some of these wires. All right. Soldering iron going here. Some solder. And this is lead-free solder, but it does have resin inside of the solder. And so it's going to make wonderful little plumes of stinky smoke, as they do. I gotta figure out how to get this plugged in and cross everything over to my power plug. I'm burning myself. Sorry, this is going to shake the overhead camera here for just a sec, folks. All right. Stuff out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to start stripping some of these things down so we can actually use these as sockets. I want to give myself a little bit of extra length on these two as we work. I really wish I could find my actual wire strippers. Check again if I can find them. All right, we got wire strippers. I need to 3D print the Kirby fume vacuum. Yeah, actually, that'd be a pretty good idea. All right, let's see what size we need to clip that. 18 gauge, nope. 20 gauge. Yep. Wait, is it 20 or not? Gauge, but these things don't want to strip. Right, so there's one. I'm thinking I might use green for left and use that green one for left one. So there's two kinds of wires in these things. These ones you can kind of splay them out a little bit. Um, so these are individual wires kind of coiled up, and there's also something called solid core. Um, but these are braided on the inside. These are actually solid core. No, sorry, those are braided. That one's also braided. I have other wire that's actually solid core, um, which is like you bend it and it stays there, which is really helpful in some circumstances. All right, so we got those stripped. So we're going to solder those ones first. So we're going to use the green ones. Did I say I was going to use green for left or right? But we're also doing all of Darth Vader. So I need 3 more of these things in the same color. It looks like I only have 2 of every color. All right, so let's just do red and orange, and then we'll do, well, shouldn't use red. So typically in electronics, red means you're like a positive voltage source, and black is your ground or your negative voltage source. So I need to use colors other than that. So I'm going to use orange and yellow for these. For the other side, and then I'm going to need another either orange or yellow. So orange, yellow, and green are typically, and blue are typically used as like data line colors, at least in the electronics I used to do. So that's what we're going to use today. So again, I'm just cutting off some female ends here. They'll plug very nicely into the top of the Raspberry Pi to make that connection. All right, so for Darth Vader, I'm going to make Darth Vader the orange one. Strip this off here real quick, and then we'll get that one soldered up. So my soldering iron's nice and warm. Ooh, that one's, oh no, that worked. Okay. All right, so let's get that out of the way. Okay, so we need Darth Vader. So we get Darth Vader on the right and Darth Vader on the left. So what I need to do here, I'm going to start on the right one. Did I say green was right or left? Does anybody remember? Anybody remember if I said green was left or right? Or that I was going to make green left or right? Nobody? I'm going to make the right one the yellow and orange. So again, actually, you know what? We're going to need 2 of these. Well, I need to figure out a way to wire up all of the negative ones together. So we have a black wire and we have a white wire. So the white wire is going to be our positive voltage, and our black wire is going to be our ground. And so I want to wire all of the ground wires together, which means I basically need to unwrap these things. These things are very well coiled together. And I only need to feed the white one all the way back to the 3-volt pin I'm going to be sending over. Icy Black was trying to come up with a mnemonic. Yeah, it doesn't need to be that fancy. These wires are so fancy, or so thin, flimsy is the word I was looking for. Trying to strip it, I actually cut the wire. There we go. All right, so this tiny little wire is going to go onto that tiny little wire. Wondering if I have any heat shrink small enough. If I'm going to put heat shrink on it, I need to do it now. Let me go see what kind of heat shrink I've got. All right. Good news is I've got heat shrink. Bad news is it's gigantic. I've got a few pieces that are smaller. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to heat shrink these afterwards. So I'll find some electrical tape later on and get that going. Okay, so we're just going to do our best to solder these things together here. So this was our balance. This one I want to connect. All right, so I got to get this thing a lot closer to me. I got to figure out how to solder these tiny little wires together here without completely destroying things or burning myself. Yeah, this is not going to go well. See how this is not going to go well. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put solder on the wires first. This is what we call tinning the wire. It's been a while since I've done this, so feel free to laugh at me in chat. I'm not going to be very good at this. But the hope is that I can get a little bit of solder on the end of the wire, solder on the end of the other wire, so that later on when I want to connect them, I can just melt the solder and the solder will stick one to another. That's the theory anyway. All right, we got a little bit of solder on that wire. Some of it dripped off onto the desk. That's okay. My main worry is going to be this tiny, tiny little wire because this thing is super small. It's going to be really hard to get in here and do that with all the other wires in the way. In retrospect, I would probably take this whole thing apart and attach all these wires and then build the Lego kit after. So maybe we'll do it that way for BD1. Attach all the lights, get them working on the Raspberry Pi, and then we'll add them to the BD1 model. Yeah, I'm worried about melting this other thing here. So the thing with soldering is we have to heat up what it is that we're soldering. And then we put the solder on top of what's already hot. So you don't put solder on the soldering iron and then apply that to the wire. We have to heat up the wire, and then we add solder on top of the wire. Like that. Now, if that went well, we should be able to solder these together. Actually, press those together now. No, that's not going to work very well. So I'm going to try making a little hook out of each one, hook them together. Let's see if I can get the solder to melt between them. Okay. So those wires are soldered together. In theory, if I can figure out how to get all of these negative lines together and ground all of them to one point, I'm going to add all of those onto the ground wire on our breadboard over here on our Raspberry Pi. We can test out that our Darth Vader right is what we need it to be. I'm going to try stripping this wire off a little bit here. Nope, so flimsy, I just Cut straight through the wire again. There we go. So it'll probably be a little bit easier for all of these negative wires to just twist all of those together and then melt them all in one shot onto a single socket that's going to go over to here. So I'm going to go grab. So yeah, we're definitely going to need twice as many of these things as I actually cut. Or actually, are we? No, we'll only use a single one. The guy I used to work with would take a file to the iron's tip to remove the plating so we could glove solder onto it and then scrape it off on the joint. Yeah, that's not good. That's not how you do it. Yeah, I also have to make sure that this stuff gets cleaned up and the dog doesn't find it. All right, so that's one plug down. Let's see. So if we're doing the right ones, let's see. Well, we're doing all of the Darth Vader ones, so I need to find my left Darth Vader plug here. Get that untangled a little bit. Get that one connected. And that one's going to go to a green plug. Does anybody else do anything fun over the holidays? Anybody do anything fun over New Year's? Did you get out of the house? Did you go spend time with friends? What did you do over the holidays? We got up to the mountains for a couple of days and did some mountain sledding, which was a lot of fun. And it is exactly what it sounds like. We're basically riding down the side of a mountain in giant inner tubes, and it was a lot of fun. A little chilly. It was about 20 degrees Fahrenheit when we were out there. So it was a little cold, but nothing we couldn't handle. We were well bundled up for everything that we did. I watched the Glass Onion movie with family. What was Glass Onion? I'm not familiar with that one. What kind of movie is that? What's it about? Can you give me like a one sentence synopsis? Is it sci-fi? Is it a mystery? Is it comedy? I've never heard of it. I'm always curious about checking out new stuff. Oh, I need a green one for this one. All right. That one. This one. Glass Onion is a whodunit. Comedy, not thriller. Okay. Mystery thriller related to Knives Out. I'm not familiar with Knives Out either. I'm very out of touch. All right, so we got another little hook made over here. I'm just gonna solder that together. Now this one I didn't pre-tin the wires, so I'm just gonna heat up the wires and solder over that connection. Come on. Stay in there. There we go. Burned a little bit of the shielding, but that's okay. We've got a connection. All right, and so far we've got a single connection point here for the ground. I'm kind of tempted to like put both of those into a single ground plug and get that on there. Do I want to do that? Or do I want to wait and do more of the ground plugs? Let's see. I'm going to try just for a single ground plug for all 6 of these lights later on. But just to test it out and make sure that everything's working okay, I'm going to just connect these things here really quick and just get it on the breadboard and just see that it actually works out okay. Just because I'm curious like that. Well, the negative wire is not on super tight right now. So in our code, pins 6 and 7 were the Darth Vader lights, which were these lines here. So just for simplicity's sake, let's see, we had left and right, which I believe we were doing. 6 was left and 7 was right. So the colors aren't going to match, but we can at least plug these together here. And then if our negative connection holds up okay, because I didn't solder it, they're just sort of holding on to each other here. Don't get too far out of me yet. Plug in the ground light here. All right. Somebody pew pew, and hopefully Darth Vader lights up over here. Somebody pew pew for me in chat. Anybody? Bueller? Hey, did you see it? Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Yeah, the bot took a little bit. But do it again. Darth Vader flash left, right, left, right. Yeah, that is taking a minute, isn't it? Is it working or not? Oh, yeah, well, it's working, but it's really slow. So this is the other problem with the API is it's getting colliding API calls. So that's why it was like flickering and staying on, flickering and staying on, because it was trying to do all of it at the same time. So, but it worked. So our Darth Vader is wired up, and that works. So we're one step closer. I'm probably gonna have to put a timer limit or something like that on the. So I'm actually gonna unplug these for now, so it's not going to do those. What I'll do instead is I'll plug in these LEDs the way that they were over here. So you'll still be able to see something blink. I'm going to do a pew pew command. Which was which though? That should go over here. That one's going to go back over to here. Okay, so pew pew should now make these 2 lights blink again. And we've got other power leads here that we can kind of check as we work. Cool, so Darth Vader's wired up, ready to go. We got our ground wires exposed that we'll all solder together onto a single ground wire at the end. And we'll keep going. So we got a handful more. Uh-oh, one of them didn't light up. Nah. It should. These 2 should be Darth Vader. Can someone do another pew pew? Oh, that is taking a while, isn't it? Oh, one of these LEDs is not coming on anymore. Let's see, power into the resistor back to here. That should work. Okay, well, pewpew command mostly works. So we're just going to keep working over here. So we got one more yellow for the TIE Fighter, one more yellow for the cannon. And we said that the yellow ones were going to be for the right side, and the green ones were going to be for the left side. So we got our cannon right over here. Get that end off. Sorry, Bricks Max, if you're watching this, seeing me destroy your lights, but not like I was ever going to do a warranty call on this stuff anyway. These are actually very well engineered, and their instructions are fantastic for going through and like figuring out how these light kits work and stuff like that. They did a really, really good job with instructions on how to get all this stuff working. Kudos to Bricks Max. Looking forward to the BD1. The BD1 I think has 6 or 7 lights on it as well. All right, let's get that one. Strip wire here. And apologies to any other electrical engineers out there watching me try to do this. It's been a hot minute, no pun intended, since I've done some soldering. At least on tiny little flimsy wires like this. I'll probably order some really small heat shrink. I'll get these things properly heat shrunk. So I'll probably desolder these at some point, maybe over the weekend. Well, depending on how quickly I can find some heat shrink this small. So I'll desolder these connections and do them up a little better. They actually make some heat shrink with solder in it that you basically, it's got a ring of solder in between, and you put the wires through to touch, and that's, or overlap, and that's where the solder ring is. And then you just hit it with a heat gun, and the heat gun is enough to melt everything. But I'm not that fancy. One sec, everybody, got to mute. Hey everybody, I'm back. Sorry about that. All right, so let's get this wire on here. Hey X90, good to see you in chat. It's been a long time since I've seen you in chat. Hope you're doing well. Happy New Year to you. Is it mixing okay, or do you want me to take a look at it? Okay. Kind of in prop making mode over here. Our oldest son is in a play at school, and my wife is trying to dye some glue. So we're using some really fine mica powder glitter that I got for doing resin prints or resin casting. And we're trying to mix that in with the glue to make kind of a honeycomb color glue. There's that, looks like that. Yeah, that connects okay. Did you get it all over?
Yeah, I did.
I'll be right back, everyone.
Sorry. It's clear blue, but I put a bunch of nail polish in it. Like, we're trying to make it sticky like honey, so.
All right, so I've got, which one was that? Was that our TIE fighter? No, that was a cannon. That was the cannon right, so now we got the cannon left. Doing well, busy holiday season. How's my holiday? My holiday was pretty good. It was really quiet. We had Christmas alone here, and so it was pretty chill. And we had a good time. My family picked me up some Lego and some really cool puzzles. They know I like doing puzzles, and my favorite kind of jigsaw puzzle to put together has like color gradients. And my son actually picked out a puzzle where the picture is of another puzzle that somebody's trying to solve of a gradient color of all colors of the rainbow. So it was a puzzle of a puzzle of a gradient. So it was like above and beyond the kind of difficulty. It took me a couple of days to put together, but it's kind of my favorite thing to do around the holidays, is just kind of chill and do some puzzles. And they found another one of Dachshund that has some fun little gradient colors in the background as well. So I started putting that one together. And then what else? I got a Lego kit of the from the first Iron Man movie. It's the big mech that Obadiah Stane's character battles Tony Stark at the end of the movie. I forget what they call it. It's in the to do list. To do exclamation point to do. I think I've got it in the Lego list on the to do list. So I want to build that. It doesn't have a light kit at all, but I'm big into Marvel, so decided to put that one together at some point this year. And what else? Oh, I got all the Canadian goodies. So I got the bits and bytes. Made sure to eat that away from the wife because the wife can't stand the smell. Guys, I love you. No response. But yeah, those are super yummy. And I got some Canadian chocolate bars, and working my way through those because those are super tasty. Trying to keep them hidden from the children so they don't snack out on them. So far, that's working out okay. Oh, did not connect. Try that one again. Oh wait, was I trying to connect the wrong one? Uh-oh. I have two of these clipped. Oh no. Soldered the wrong wire on the wrong spot. It's not belong on there. That is our power supply. And now I've messed up which one of these was the right and left cannon. Good news is we can fix it in software if we need to. Just that way I don't have to try and plug these things back into power to diagnose which was which. All right, let's try that one again. So actually one of these I know. So the right one I stripped both wires. So I know that this is the right one. Try this approach on connecting those. Let's solder that. With a box of scraps, that's right. That was such a great movie. When I unpacked that for Christmas, the first thing I wanted to do was watch the movie all over again. First Iron Man movie, and that's like such a great like start to the whole MCU. Apparently, Robert Downey Jr. is going to be in an upcoming movie as Iron Man again. Some sort of like uh, Armor Wars or something like that, or Secret Avengers or something. They've confirmed he's going to be in that movie again. I think Secret Avengers. Because the headline I saw was like, not so secret. Apparently he's coming back just to do one more movie. There we go. That actually. Yeah. So yeah, he's going to come back and do one more movie, and then yeah, Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds doing Wolverine and Deadpool. That's going to be a great one. Great to see their social media blitz has already started for harassing each other about the movie. I wondered how long it was going to take Ryan Reynolds to respond to the whole "don't give Ryan Reynolds an Oscar" and calling it Wolverine and Deadpool. I kind of half expected Ryan Reynolds to come back and be like, "No, it's actually Deadpool and Wolverine, not Wolverine and Deadpool." I think the fans aren't really going to care one way or the other. They just want the movie made. Yep. Stay on there. Stay on target. Again, apologies to any electrical engineers watching my horrible soldering practices here. But it is what it is. Like I said, I'll go through and tin these up properly and connect these up properly later on for now, just to make a solid connection on these. And we'll get all the grounding wires together. So yeah, I made the mistake of connecting this to what I thought was going to be the Canon endpoint, but that was the wrong one to do. Okay, so we got the Darth Vader, we got the Canon done, so now we just have our TIE Fighter left. TIE Fighter on the right. Wouldn't surprise me if they came back for a few more movies instead of contract for 10 movies. Yeah, it went one by one. Well, the nice thing about, so I have a theory on this, and I think part of the reason why Marvel is kicking DC's butt at the box office is because they were able to get these people to sign up for several movies at a time. Like Mark Ruffalo signed up to do 6 Hulk movies, or to play Hulk in 6 movies when they signed him up to be Bruce Banner. And that's kind of the nice thing about getting them to sign up for multiple pictures is they're locked in. Where now on the DC side, Henry Cavill's not going to be Superman. Gal Gadot is not going to be Wonder Woman anymore. There's talk about whether Ben Affleck is even going to come back as Batman. Ezra Miller got into all that legal trouble, so is he even going to be back as Flash or not? Like, if they had locked all these people in and I mean, other than the case of Ezra Miller, being getting into legal trouble. There's not much you can do to really control that ahead of time, but get these people locked in for multiple pictures, and then you wouldn't have to worry about like, oh, we need a new Superman, we need a new Wonder Woman, or we need a new Aquaman. Like Jason Momoa is not going to be Aquaman anymore. And so everybody going to these movies, they're like, who's this actor? Like, I don't recognize this actor. This isn't the same person that I really liked in that other movie if they liked that other movie. And so from a continuity point of view, it's kind of leaving the fans hanging a little bit. And I think that that's part of why Marvel's done such a really good job with their movies. I mean, aside from the storyline and all that kind of stuff too, but I think that a big part of it is just that they were able to lock these actors in for several movies at a time. That's my take on it anyway. Juggling Biohazards, good to see you. Saw a sculpt of William Defoe as the Joker. Really hope they get that going. He's made for that role. He would be pretty good in that role. Although he did play Gwen Stacy's dad in one of the Spider-Man movies. But then again, there's alternate universes and whatever, so who knows what'll happen there. What other movies are people excited to see that are coming out this year? Or shows? I think there's some more Star Wars shows coming out, right? I've got Mandalorian 3 coming out. They confirmed if they're doing another season of Andor or not. I don't think I've seen one way or the other if they're doing a sequel for that. But I was trying to explain to my kids, like, you know, in between episode 3 and episode 4, you've got the Rogue One movie, and the prequel to Rogue One is this Andor series, and you've also got the Obi-Wan series of how he watches Luke grow up like a weird, creepy stalker watching from afar, kind of thing. So yeah, it was a little confusing to try to explain to one of my kids about that. He's been getting into some of the Star Wars stuff, so I actually bought him the Thrawn novel series, which doesn't happen until after Return of the Jedi, the 6th movie, or episode 6. But he hasn't watched Empire or Return of the Jedi yet, so he doesn't want to start reading the books until he's seen the movie. Or the last 2 movies, which I get. So we're trying to find a time that he can sit down and watch those other 2 movies so that he can start on that book series. He's a very avid reader, loves reading, and he's been really getting into Star Wars lately, so it'll be fun to see how he enjoys that Thrawn series. And then I want to read that series after him because I've heard it's really, really good. Andor was going to be 2 seasons from the start, and season 2 will lead right into Rogue One. Okay, cool. I hope they introduce some of the other characters from Rogue One in the second season, because there were a lot of really good characters in there. I've heard they're kind of flip-flopping back and forth on whether there's going to be a second Han Solo movie. I think the last I heard is that there is not going to be a second Han Solo movie. Uh-oh, I lost a camera. Indiana Jones movie. Oh, that's right. Yeah, Indiana Jones, the fifth one coming out. I mean, kudos to Harrison Ford for keeping that stuff going as long as he has. It's definitely going to be an interesting one to watch for sure. I'm glad that they kind of got closure between him and his dad as Sean Connery. Since Sean Connery passed away, it's not like we can really get him in the movie again. All right, we're almost done here with this, and then we're going to solder up all these other joints, and then we'll get all these powered up, and we'll see whether the pew pew can make this do what we want it to do. And one thing I've never tested is how hot my soldering iron actually gets. It's hot enough to burn my finger if I put my finger in the wrong spot, though. One of the other things that I want to do as part of the stream is staying with the theme of doing the giveaways and stuff like that that I've been doing in the past. I want to keep doing the giveaways, but what I'm going to be giving away is the stuff that I make on the channel. And so, for example, one of the things that we did last year was giving away all the 3D dragons. But this year, on the Tuesday and Thursday streams, because I want to get into more like making of things, I've actually been picking up some really cool molds to make resin casts of things. And I also bought some horrible silicone that I can actually 3D print my own things and turn that into a mold of some kind. And so that's something that I want to get into exploring, is like how to turn a 3D print into a mold to make a resin cast of that thing and then give that thing away on the stream. Because I got lots of resin, I've got lots of silicone, obviously a lot of 3D printing material. So, you know, maybe not something as fine and intricate as like the Deadpool kind of model, but like, can I 3D print like a ring, make a cast of that, and then cast that in resin? And yes, I have a resin printer that I could do that kind of stuff on as well, but I want to do it as a resin cast and tinker with that a little bit. Okay, so we got all of our positive wires connected. Now we just need to get all these ground wires together, hopefully in a way that they're all going to reach one another. This one's going to be tricky. I'll get all of these together in one place. Connect all of them together in one shot. And then the other thing that I want to do, just to drive a little more eyeballs to the newsletters, the email newsletters that I have, is to draw random people who are subscribers to the newsletters. And as an incentive to subscribe to the newsletters is randomly draw subscribers from the newsletters to get some of these giveaway prizes. But I don't want to necessarily like publicize when I'm doing the giveaways. I want it to kind of be a surprise. I think that'll help drive a little more incentive to subscribe to that newsletter, as well as just keep things interesting for people that want to be kind of engaged with the content, things like that. So these last 3 wires, these are by far the finest gauge wires I think I've ever used in any kind of electronics. You know what I should do instead of resoldering these later is actually get these into their own little socket plugs of some kind, like little DuPont sockets or something like that. That might make a little more sense for attaching these things later on. All right, so that should be all of our ground wires all connected together. Solder that real quick. So that'll stay together. I'm going to put a lot of extra solder on that and hope I don't drip hot solder onto the wires below. Do I do any custom CAD design? So that's also something that I want to get into on Tuesdays, because I do have some ideas for some custom work of things that I want to design. So for example, the paints that I use for painting my 3D prints, I found a really cool hexagon sort of pattern tray for the bottles of paint that I use. So I have these bottles of paint that I use, and I found a thing where you can put them in upside down or right side up. And that works fantastic. But some of the paint that I have is actually in tubes. And I actually found a design on printables where somebody designed a wall hangable rack for those tubes. But I want to design a desk mount for some of that. So I've actually started some of the work. I just haven't finished the design. All right, let me unplug my soldering iron because I think I'm done with the soldering. And I keep burning my hand. So let me get that out of the way, and then we'll plug all this in. We'll see if the pewpew still works. So the heartbeat's still going over here. Can somebody do a pewpew command and make sure that this thing's still working for us? Then let me know whether you saw it working, because I turned my back for a moment. Did it work or no? Well, we got the response. Did the lights actually blink? I wasn't paying attention. Did anybody notice if the lights blinked? They're starting to blink. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stop the software and restart the software. Oh, system is not functioning. Something went wrong. You have a serial connection for another program. Disconnect it from there first. Okay. So we definitely have some kind of issue. Pull the power back in. See if we can get reconnected to it here. So that's good to know. We might end up with a problem with too many people trying to hit it at a time. So again, that's might be where I want to do a like put an actual timer or something on the device. Okay, so let's start that back up. And I saw the lights flash once for the power on self-test, as I call it. And if we do a pew pew, Did my chatbot stop working? No, chatbot's still there. Did anybody see the lights flash? It's definitely connected to my network. Maybe it wasn't connected yet. Let's try it again. Ruh-roh. Chatbot hasn't registered it yet. All right, let's reboot the chatbot. Oh yeah, the chatbot is hung up on something. All right, so I will cold restart my chatbot, and then we will do the pew pew again when that comes back up. Yep. Okay. So the pew pew works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug these LEDs, and I'm going to plug our new LEDs in, and we'll see if we can make our trench run blink with the Raspberry Pi. All right, so I'll switch over to this microphone. All right, so let's get some of the stuff unplugged from over here, because we're not going to need these things anymore. And in theory, we can get these things going over here. All right, so I've got all these things in a single ground pin. That ground pin is going to be pin 3 over here. So I'm going to unplug that from the breadboard and plug in our ground pin. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I forgot which of this rat nest was Darth Vader and which one was our cannon. That was silly. I mean, I should have relabeled these after soldering this stuff on. All right, well, we know that all the green ones were the left side. So we may just have to do a bit of a test here with some of these as we go. So we're just going to plug in some of these left LEDs and we'll figure out which is which. Also have to make sure that these exposed wires aren't touching each other, because shorting this whole thing out would not be very nice. Okay, so we got that. So what I think I can do, if I go back over to my code screen, let's go over here for a sec and go look at our editor. I think I can actually do, oh no, because I don't have the REPL anymore. I was wondering if I could actually control the pins from here, but it doesn't look like that's going to work out. Let me go put this other camera back so you're not staring at something completely uninteresting. Yeah, so this is the Raspberry Pi code here. Did I mention I'm designing floor pieces so I can build a floor in my office with IKEA floor pieces and 3D printed pieces to fill in the gaps? That's cool. The orange one was Darth. The orange one was Darth Vader, but I lost track of, well, actually, I should be able to trace back some of the wires together. So we know the orange one was Darth Vader. We know that that came from down in the center somewhere. So the other counterpart to that one, I think the Darth Vader one is plugged into the right spot at least. Okay. So our left lights all blinked on the Death Star. So now we just have to plug in the right ones. We know that the orange one was also Darth Vader. That one plugged on. So that one's on. I might have to guess at these other ones. No, this one's going to be the Canon. Our Canon was last, so our Canon one's going to be over here. This is going to be our TIE Fighter. All right. Everything should be plugged in okay. I just need to make sure that these wires aren't touching to short each other out. Definitely a shielding nightmare waiting to happen. All right. So in theory, I saw all 6 of the lights blink. So we've got them wired up. That works. The last one we have to wire up is actually the power to all of the LEDs that need to stay on all the time. But otherwise, our pew pew command is working as expected. Shouldn't have put my soldering iron away because I need to solder 2 more things on here. All right, so we got one more for power, one more for ground. I'm gonna use these last 2. And I gotta move my soldering iron again. All right. Soldering iron wasn't very far away, but I need to plug it back in and heat it back up again. Excuse me while I jostle any cameras to get this unplugged in. Okay, so our pew pew works. I'm going to go back over to the screen. All right, so we need to strip these wires down and get these connected to the power over here for the lights that are going to be on all the time. I mean, I'm just dropping everything everywhere. All right, we're almost done for the night. And again, yeah, top camera. Yeah, right. Dang it. All right. I have a feeling that I'm saturating my USB bus. I think that's the problem that I'm having with all these devices. Is I've just got too many things plugged in everywhere. So I bought a second USB bus card. I got that in the motherboard the other day, but I don't have anything new plugged into it yet. But I want to use one of, so I have a lot of USB ports on the motherboard itself. I've got a whole bunch of other USB ports on a card that I inserted, and then I bought a second card. So I've got plenty of USB ports on the machine, but what I need to do is dedicate, like this card is going to be just my microphones, and this card's going to be just my cameras. Or this card's only going to be like the main Elgato cameras, and all the other USB cameras, like the ones that I'm using here on the desk, will go into like a lesser priority USB port or hub or something like that. Because it's really annoying to have these things constantly failing like this when I'm trying to live stream. All right, let's get these last ones soldered up and plugged in, and then should be all done for the night. Didn't actually fix the overhead camera, did it? There it goes. That one attached. It's blurry, it's not behaving. It just came apart. Okay, we're almost done here. All right. Anybody have any big plans for 2023? Anybody got any big trips, any vacations, anything big going on that you want to share? If not, that's cool too. Anybody's got anything big going on you want to share with us? I'm always looking to live vicariously through other people. So Maniac is going into just do it mode. Just get the thing done. Good, good way to think about life for sure. I think that's connected. Okay. So now our continuous power should be on. Let me get this soldering iron back out of the way here. The other thing that I may do is a channel point redemption. Is I picked up, it's actually a Maker Advent calendar from Pi Hut. It's not a full 24-day thing, but it's a little 12-day kit of Raspberry Pi little experiments or whatever to do. And this also comes with a Pico, but it's the Pico H, which is not the wireless version. So it won't have network connectivity, but it will be a way to do some extra Raspberry Pi programming. All right, so let's get these ones plugged in. So this one's going to be our 3-volt power supply. And the other one is going to be a ground pin. I'm going to use a ground pin over on this side of the board, I think. There's also pin 3 on this side. So we should see all of the Death Star lights show up here. And we do. All right, so let's take this whole thing, spin this whole thing around. I need to fix our X-Wing fighter. This loop keeps falling off. Let's get this camera pointed this way at things. If we go over to this view, so we've got our TIE Fighter down here. We got Darth Vader here. And we have our cannon over here. All the other lights are all lit up on the Death Star. And, oh, do it again, do it again. So the pew pew made everything pew pew. Do it again, RC. Pew pew pew. All right, I got one more thing. So one change I'm actually going to make in the coding side of it. So I'm actually going to make one little change here in VS Code. Let me switch over to VS Code. For reasons, when we call pew pew, before I actually send that request, I want to do a 2-second sleep in here. And this will make sense here in just a moment, but I'm going to go ahead and reboot my chatbot. While we're waiting on that, I'm going to restart our pew pew command. And I got one more thing I want to do. So don't do anything yet. All right. Juggling biohazards, I nominate you, please, to do a pew pew command for us. So if you want to do exclamation point PEW.
I have you now.
All right. Well, the sound and the time delay is a little off, but I made a goofy little soundbite to go with it. So now when you do pew pew, it'll do the little Darth Vader, I have you now. Just because it's my dorky brand of humor. So we can adjust the timing on it. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a good way to synchronize that. The sound and time delay worked well on your end. All right, great. It was a little bit off here, but cool. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. I want to do some request collapsing or request queuing. So yeah, queuing would be a great idea for this, as well as just looking at.
I have you now.
So if a bunch of you do the pew pew command, it only plays the sound every 5 seconds, and so that's where putting in a proper queue on this stuff would be helpful. So one tool that I've been starting to use more and more is StreamerBot, and StreamerBot will allow you to write code in C#, which I'm not as familiar with as Python, but I'm wondering if something like the pew pew command, where we do an API call to make the lights blink, if it would make sense to figure out how to do that in C# so that StreamerBot can control all of the pew pew command. So it can do the actual do the lights, play the sound, pause for a moment, and then just play the lights. So C#? Well, I'll get you to do it. Cool. Well, we got a pew pew command. Actually, I'm just gonna shut off the light or shut off the sound bite on that for now. But there we go. All right, so the sound is off. But yeah, I agree, RC. Having some kind of command queue on that would be helpful. The chatbot is running off my PC here, and so it's a lot more powerful. It can take just tons and tons of chat commands all day long. But the Raspberry Pi that's running these lights is very limited. It's a dual core, but it's only 133 megahertz or something. It's a really slow processor, and there's 2 cores. And so doing the asynchronous commands in there is problematic at best, as far as trying to really pump this thing all the time. So having some kind of queue on the chatbot side that only allows us to run this every so many seconds or something would absolutely be beneficial. That's one place where I see. It's one place where I see StreamerBot do a much better job as far as controlling that, because I don't have those timer delays and whatever and queuing built into my chatbot. It sees a request, it handles that request, and it's done right away. I wrote it at the start of the stream. Pi 0 equals R Pi 1, Pi 02 equals R Pi 3. So these aren't Pi zeros, these are Pi Pico Ws. So I bought 4 of them. because I've got a whole bunch of light kits. So the next one we're going to do is BD1. And like I said, on that one, we might do the soldering and the socketing of the wires before I actually install the wires on the kit. I think that'll be a little bit easier for us to do. But yeah, it's the Pico W, which is the wireless version of the Pico H. Well, there was the Pico, and then there was the Pico H, which I think was just the Pico with the headers. And then they came out with a Pico W and the Pico WH. But the W is the one that has a wireless connectivity, and apparently it's going to get Bluetooth connectivity soon. They've got some kind of firmware update that they're going to push out that the Pico W is going to get Bluetooth connectivity. But getting the Wi-Fi set up on here was really easy. As far as like understanding, like it's literally copy and paste a couple of lines of code, put in your Wi-Fi credentials, and it connects, and you get an IP address. And then from there, it was just a question of, okay, well, how do I build like a little mini web server in code to be able to respond to like an API endpoint? But you can also do really interesting things like go read the temperature and go build a little dynamic HTML page that shows that temperature, or send it back as a JSON response or something like that. So yeah, there's lots of interesting things to do in there. Yeah, the H is for headers. I think the edge of the Pico itself, because there's two different kinds of edges on here. I don't know how well I'll be able to zoom in on this, how well you'll be able to see it on here, but there's actually two sets of holes on the edge here. There's like a hole, and then at the very edge there's like a little C shape or a little U shape hole on there. And I think that was the difference in the header version or something like that. Although I think these were just W's, so I'm not sure what the physical appearance of the WH is, but I think they only do one of those headers. The inner circle, and not the U-shape cutout, is where you would attach your normal 20-pin sort of header pins and solder those in. And all I did on this Raspberry Pi that we saw on the breadboard is I just soldered in just the pins that I knew I was going to need. I was going to need power, I was going to need ground, and I was going to need a handful of those GPIO pins. So those are the only ones I actually soldered onto the Raspberry Pi. I may clip the other ones off because I don't need them. Yeah, that was a fun little project. So we got our trench running all the time, and we got the pew pew command. So thanks for hanging out in chat, everybody. We've been going for a little bit now. Wow, we just hit 3 hours. So again, on Sunday's going to be the typical tech interview guide. We'll do some resume reviews if people want to submit resumes. You can do a resume review. So we can do resume. So if you want to submit a resume for a review, you're welcome to submit it there. I'm debating whether to put these maker streams up on YouTube or not. I don't know whether they'll be helpful for people to kind of watch or not. But I don't know. If anybody has thoughts on whether I should actually publish these videos, I'm going to record them either way. But if you think I should publish these on YouTube, just make like a maker sort of playlist or something, so they won't get mixed up with the interview stuff. I don't know. I think as I get into like the CAD design and doing more of the 3D printing, like again on the workbench here, I've got like all the paints and the paint brushes, and I've got like the files, and I've got the sanding sticks and things like that to do the like post-processing of 3D prints. And I do want to show like some of the stuff I do to do like little intricate sanding and do some painting and stuff like that, just to kind of change up the stream a little bit. But it's also something that I've wanted to find time for. I figure, well, might as well make some time and just do it as part of the stream. I think until the job market kind of corrects itself over the next couple of months, I think it's going to be tricky. Amazon's laying off 18,000 people. Salesforce is laying off another like 10% of their staff. It's going to be a challenge to find a job for sure. And that's not to say that I'm giving up on Tech Interview Guide, because it's going to be hard. But I've got other things that I need to do. Like I need to redesign that whole website, and in order to make time for that and be able to answer questions about it, I want to do that kind of stuff on stream. And so that's why I built that whole to-do list. And so if you've got ideas, if you want to help contribute to the, oh wow, why is this camera gigantic? If you want to help contribute to the to-do list, you're more than welcome to. In fact, I would really appreciate anybody's input on prioritizing that kind of stuff or what kind of content you'd like to see on the stream. Sorry, this is so janky while I reposition this camera every time. I don't know why that's happening in OBS, but it is what it is. But yeah, I would appreciate anybody's help if you've got ideas on how to prioritize what you would like to see on the stream. I'm always happy to take input on that stuff. I can't isolate just. Oh, I was resizing the wrong thing. That's why. Nope. Wow. And OBS is being a real pain in the butt today. I'm gonna have to go back and like redo all these scenes and just make sure everything is where it needs to be. Separate playlists with tips and tricks. Okay, I could do that. Definitely be interested in seeing some CAD content. Been learning Onshape. I mean, I mostly just use Tinkercad, so I'm not really doing anything advanced enough to get into like Fusion 360. But I can. I definitely want to get into Tinkercad and show like some of the stuff that I do and how I join things and how I sort of carve out bits and pieces for using less material, but in a way where I don't need supports. So like if I'm building the wall of something, you know, I want to cut out like a big portion of the wall, but I don't want to have to end up with a bunch of support material in there. And so I do diamonds and triangles and things like that in a particular orientation to where the print is still sturdy, but I use like 40% less material to actually create the thing. So I want to show that kind of stuff on Tinkercad. So I'm thinking like Tuesday might be that kind of stuff. Thursday would be more coding, and then Sunday would be like the interview prep and resume reviews and things like that. Cool. Well, I think that's about all I got for tonight. So let's go see if we can find somebody to raid. Anybody fun streaming tonight that we can go raid into? Let's see who's online. So yeah. Oh, so the group that we're fundraising for is called Unloop, and Unloop is basically raising money to help people who have been incarcerated find jobs in tech. So that's something that I wanted to do as a donation. So the donate to charity will allow you to keep track of that, and I'll figure out some way of having like that running total on the Tech Interview Guide stream on Sundays. I do want to match those donations though, and so I want to have I do want to have those sorts of things available where you can donate directly yourself. So you're not giving me money to then donate. You're actually making the donation yourself. And we'll be able to track all those kinds of things. Looks like Zombie Hedgehog is still streaming. We've got Babe Ross, Maker Deck. Madeline of Rivia, who dropped by earlier, is streaming. We've raided into her channel before. Got Juicebox Hero. Let's see. Who do we want to raid into? Atomic, that's the word. Oh, yeah. I mean, doing atomic controls. I mean, either way, it's still doing a queue. Like I can queue up all the pewpew commands. I just have to write a queue in my chatbot, which I don't have right now. But I could. Like I could build in a queue where it just watches those things and it just pushes something in a queue and then reads it back out to actually process. I could do that. But again, we just have to make sure that you know the concurrency model is kind of in place, and it's going to work well. Let's see what's going on. We got some leak code going on. GBav is streaming some kind of gaming, I think. What else we got going on tonight? Who can we raid into? We got Coding Vibe. I don't think we've ever raided into Coding Vibe. But they're doing some software. Oh yeah, we've raided in there before. We got Babe Ross doing some artwork. I think we'll raid over to Zombie Hedgehog. He usually has some giveaways and stuff going on his channel. So if you're into 3D printing, you might be able to get into some giveaways over there. Sharp Balloon should be on any minute now. Rydkin Wife is really good at doing like beadwork. I don't know Valencia Glass, but thanks, Doublebird. Let me check that one out real quick. I don't know Valencia Glass. Oh, doing glass blowing. Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, let's go check that out. Never raided into a glass blowing channel before, so yeah, we'll go right over there. Thanks for the suggestion, Devilbird. Good to see you in chat as well. So yeah, we'll go right over there. Make some noise. One of the things I've got on my to-do list is to make like a raid command or something like that for emotes and whatever, but you're welcome to just make some noise. Use your favorite emotes when you get over there. Tell them hello. And we'll catch you on Sunday. So I'll stream at the regular time on Sunday, but it's all going to be interview prep. It won't be any of the maker stuff. I'll see if I can like rewire and resolder some of those wire connections, and we'll get the trench run up here on the desk behind me. So if you come in and you do a pew pew, we'll see the lights blinking back here. Cool. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. We'll catch you over on Valencia Glass, doing some glass blowing over there, and we'll see you on Sunday. Cheers, everyone.